joining me. On Saturday afternoon, the co-leadership of the election at the Green Party AGM, I said that I would be speaking to my caucus colleagues, to Green Party members and to family before deciding on next steps. I've had those conversations, and as you will have heard on the news this morning, I am standing to be co-leader of the Green Party. I am standing to lead the Green Party into the next election alongside Marama Davidson, so that together, our members and supporters across the country, we can transform New Zealand and create a country that works for everyone. For more than 3 decades, the Green Party has stood up for what is right. We have stayed true to our values in Parliament and in government, leading the fight to eliminate poverty, to honour te tiriti, to protect nature, and to fight catastrophic climate change. I am very proud of what we have achieved over the course of the last 30 years that we have been a political party, over the 20 years that we have been in Parliament, and over the 5 years that we have been in government. But it is still clear that we have a lot more work to do. We have people all over the country who are struggling to make ends meet. Wealth is increasingly concentrated in the hands of a few. We have companies that are planning to mine on conservation land. We have students who cannot afford to eat. We still have children going hungry. So as long as those challenges exist, Aotearoa needs the Green Party more than ever. Whilst we still have those problems, my job is not done. That is not to say that I don't take the events of the weekend seriously. I do. If anything, it shows how much our members care about the work that we do, and that has only made me more determined than ever to fight for the action that we need. If I am successful, I will redouble my efforts and push for bold action on climate change, to heal our native wildlife, and to end poverty. I am proud, as I said, of what we have achieved, and I believe that people like what they see. Our polling is up on where it was on election night 2020, and that was up on where it was on election night 2017. The number of people considering voting Green is higher now than it has been at any point since Jacinda Ardern took over the leadership of the Labour Party. But, like many of our members, there are times when I have been deeply frustrated that we have not yet gone as far as we could or as fast as we should. The machinery of government is glacially slow and as yet does not match the speed or the scale of the climate crisis. The solution to that is to get more Green MPs into Parliament and for us to exert more pressure on the next government and the decisions that shape the future that our kids will inherit from us. And it requires civil society and community leadership to put pressure on Parliament and on the wider system to match the scale of the challenges that we face. Over the course of the coming weeks and months, I will be listening to our members up and down the country to get their views about how we make that happen. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Mikey.
Time to take soundings. Who exactly did you talk to and what influenced your decision?
Look, I've both had direct conversations, but I've also had an enormous amount of correspondence from Green Party members up and down the country, including from branches that didn't cast a vote on Saturday, and that has reassured me that that I had the support necessary to be able to retain the leadership.
So those branches have given you their pledge that they will turn out to vote for you?
I have heard, I just want to be very clear about this. I haven't heard from every branch in the country, but I have heard from some branches, and I've also heard from members right across the country.
Have you spoken to...
You said you plan to lead the Greens into the next election. What happens after that? Have you got any plans after what happens on 2023?
Yes, we're going to form another government with the Labour Party, and we're going to go further and faster than we have so far.
And you plan to be the leader for that?
Yes, I do.
Have you asked Chloe Swarbrick not to run against you? Have you asked Chloe
Yes, I have.
Swarbrick?
So you have the support of every member of your caucus?
Look, I want to be really clear about this, as I was on the radio this morning, that I do not want to speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think that's unfair to them, and they should be able to speak for themselves. The conversations that we had were in confidence between us. I don't want to betray any of those confidences, and I also don't want to put words into their mouths. So you will have to talk to them about what their views are.
And so are you expecting a challenger from within the caucus, and then secondly from within the membership?
Again, that is entirely their prerogative, and I'm not going to put words in their mouths, and I'm not going to make any announcements on behalf of anybody else.
So we could be seeing a challenger.
Would you view a challenge by a fellow MP as a betrayal?
Sorry, say that again?
Would you view a challenge by a fellow MP as a personal betrayal?
No. Look, like I said, have you met us? Look, it's entirely the right of each MP, and in fact, under our rules, every single member of the party to be able to put themselves forward for the leadership, and people can have any number of reasons to do that. We've had contested leadership elections before. I took part in a contested leadership election. There's nothing wrong with that.
Is this a commitment that you're going to be?
Have you asked Chloe Swarbrick not to stand against you?
Like I said, Mikey, the conversations that I've had with my colleagues are in confidence between me and my colleagues, and I'm not going to put words in the mouths of my colleagues. They can speak for themselves.
So that's not a yes nor a no?
That's correct, because I'm not saying anything on behalf of any of my colleagues.
Are you going to be switching up your strategy on how you approach Are you going to be switching up your strategy on how you approach the climate change portfolio in light of the challenge to your co-leadership?
Well, let me put it this way. I am as frustrated as anybody at how long it is taking us to get the machinery of government operating at the scale of the challenge of the climate crisis. I am a member of the government, and I am pushing the government as hard as I can to do more, to go further, and to go faster than it has so far. I will continue to do that. Sorry, Joe.
Have you thought any more about what sort of a mandate you would like? This morning you were asked and you weren't sure.
No, I haven't. To be honest with you, it's not something I intend to devote any of my attention to. Like I said this morning, I'm in it to win it. Issues to do with what the margin is or anything like that, I'm not terribly interested in.
And given this is the second time, though, that you've been challenged, do you think that you need to reach a certain threshold in order to feel as if, you are meeting what the party is calling for?
Only the thresholds that are in the party constitution. But I mean, to me, those are the ones that matter.
51% would be comfortable for you.
That is, if there's a challenger, that's the threshold in a contested selection. If I'm the only nominee, then it's 75%.
Can I also just ask,
Sorry.
Marama's interview on Thursday with Newsroom, she went a lot further than she needed to in support of you, and she could have just said that she thought you were getting a bit of criticism. She would have backed you. The fact that the members, delegates who voted, chose not to back you, have you talked to Marama about that? I mean, is she feeling as if she has, lost some support as well there?
Well, Joe, like I was saying, I am not going to speak on behalf of my colleagues. They can speak for themselves. Obviously, I've worked very closely with Marama for several years now, and we have a great deal of mutual respect and trust in each other, and a great deal of admiration for each other's work. I have to say, she needs to uphold the process, right? So she is now in a position that I was in a few years ago, where she is the sole co-leader of the Green Party. One of her primary responsibilities is to uphold the process that the party is going through. So she cannot endorse any nominee, including myself, for that role.
But did you think that support that she gave you, did you think that would help you get across the line, and were you surprised that you didn't?
Well, like I said on Saturday, I was surprised that the vote went the way that it did. I didn't have an indication that it was going to be dramatically above prior years, so I need to look into, why that is.
Does that show that you're out of touch? Are you out of touch with the grassroots members?
No, I believe that have good connections up and down the country, right? But clearly something did shift, and I kind of went into that on
But there were
Saturday.
warning bells all week, and both you and Marama were so shocked, so shaken yesterday, so surprised. Are you both out of touch with your members?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe that we are. But there clearly, was some effort applied to that vote on Saturday that we hadn't got.
You go through this process every year, including potentially next year, just before, a few months before an election. Does that worry you at all, that you could have this going on all over again next year at a worse time?
Look, this has been a function of the Green Party for 30 years, and from memory, and I am stretching back some way, I seem to remember being in the room when the Constitution was first written in the early 1990s, when I kind of first joined and was active in the Green Party. I don't think that you can have something in the Constitution unless you use it sometimes, right? So, that's always been there. What I do hope is that this does settle it, but it's still always there.
James, what's the point of being in the government as a minister and supporting the government when it's doing things like putting up speed limits, choosing carbon embedding tunnels, presiding over a quadrupling of the social housing waiting list? What's the point?
I believe that the things that I have done as climate change minister have dramatically outweighed anything that we've done on climate change over the course of the last 3 or 4 decades. Right? So the fact that we now have an enduring settlement on the direction of climate change policy is historic. We're one of the only countries in the world that has got the 1.5 degree temperature threshold baked into our primary legislation. You only need to look across the ditch at Australia to see what a mess climate change policy is when you don't have that broad-based consensus and you get these flip-flops, which means you don't get any traction at all. I believe that I am the person that has actually been able to make that possible. Has it gone as far as I would have liked? No, but the solution to that isn't to walk away from government, it's to get more Green MPs and to exert more influence on the next government. That's not a reason to can it, it's a reason to try harder, and that's what I'm here for.
There's no obvious...
Aren't you actually just greenwashing Labour by supporting it?
No, I think if you were to have conversations with Labour colleagues, that they would probably tell you that the government's climate change policy is significantly different because of the difference that I have made by being there.
There's no obvious challenge.
Sorry, Luke.
In the soundings that you've taken over the last 24 hours, what specific criticisms have emerged that you've heard of your leadership and the reason why these were?
Well, look, mostly I've heard from people who are supportive of my continuing, right? And in most democratic institutions, 70% would be a pretty good result. So, that has been the vast majority of the feedback that I've received. I think the important thing to remember, and I did sort of hint at this morning, is that you have to remember that the Green Party was founded by activists who have spent pretty much their entire adult lives pushing for much more dramatic action on climate change in the face of absolute inertia on behalf of the government and the private sector over that period of time. And we are out of time, right? We are experiencing the effects of climate change right now. And so there is a sense of urgency and there is a sense of frustration that the government's response isn't at the scale or at the speed at which it needs to be. And I share that frustration.
James, you've obviously done more for the Green Party than any other MP in its history. When you look at what you've just outlined, the long list of achievements you've done in terms of climate change, how hurt and betrayed do you feel that your membership is essentially turning its back on you when you've made so many wins?
Look, to tell you the honest truth, it's not an easy job. It's not a job that you necessarily enjoy every day of the week, but it is the best job that I will ever have. And the fact is that we are having the opportunity to make an enormous difference, not just right now, but to the future of the country. To be one of the leading countries, this is the opportunity that we've got to be one of the leading countries in the world fighting the climate crisis. That is something that I will never walk away from. And the criticism comes from a place of wanting to go further and faster, of wanting to do exactly the things that I want to do. So I actually share a lot of the frustration, even if that frustration is directed at me. That's just kind of part of the job, and that's fine.
And just to if you make it into, if the election goes the way it does and you're not able to form a coalition or a supply and conference agreement with the Labour government, will you still be standing for co-leader?
Look, what I said was that in 2015, when I first stood for the leadership, that my commitment was to take the Green Party into government with ministers for the first time. I've now done that twice, but I also said that I wanted to take us safely out the other side. And, we haven't quite gotten to that part of the mission yet. And you have to remember the context there was that every single other support party in government had failed in subsequent elections, right? That they had seen their support erode. I consider it a point of pride that we have gone against the tide of history and we have increased our support across 2 election cycles when we've been in government. And I think that's because people see the value that we add, both as part of the government, but also the independent voice that we have continuing to push for more change. If we are unable to form a government after the next election, I will look at my options then. But the thing that I am committed to doing is everything in my power to try and prevent the climate crisis from getting worse, right? And there are a lot of different ways to skin that particular cat.
What attributes does Chloe Swarbrick bring to the table as an MP?
There are rumblings that some of the organisation for the vote that went against you came from within your own caucus. Do you understand that that is what has happened?
I understand that there are rumours, as there always are. I don't necessarily give any credence to any particular rumour because, it's politics, and for every rumour that's true, there are 15 that aren't. So I don't particularly think.
There's no obvious challenger who's come up against you. What do you think the strategy was for those who made you reapply for your job?
You'd need to talk to them.
Are you confident that none of your caucus members are helping to mobilise against you?
Look, like I said, Mikey, my caucus colleagues are able to speak for themselves. I'm not going to speculate on rumours or on anything that they might say or do. That is up to them to speak for themselves. Always has been. I don't want to put words in their mouths. Right?
So for yourself, can I just again clarify?
Yeah.
Did you ask Chloe Swarbrick or any other members in your caucus not to stand against you?
Well, just to clarify, as I've said a number of times this morning, the conversations I had with my colleagues were in confidence.
Why can't you confirm that?
Because the conversations are in confidence.
But it's something that it's a directive. It's nothing. It's not that you'd be lifting the lid on anything that your colleagues have said. It's what you have said to them. Have you told them not to stand against you?
I haven't told anybody not to stand against me.
Jim, sure. If you stand uncontested again and you again 25% vote essentially no confidence again, what are your options then?
It's not a scenario that I'm contemplating, Luke, and if it turns out, I guess I'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it.
How confident are you that you'll be a co-leader at the end of this process?
I am quietly confident.
You're quietly confident, and so, but would you stay on as Climate Change Minister if you were no longer co-leader?
Yes.
And
Isabel.
Sorry, you've mentioned that inertia is frustrating, but you're also kind of known as the pragmatist that farmers listen to. Do you think that that's been your downfall?
I think that you need to maybe listen to a little bit of talkback radio to see whether farmers listen to me or not. I think, so at one level, that is part of the frustration, right? Is that we've made a deliberate choice to be part of a government and to try and reach out and to build a broad-based consensus in the political domain to try and ensure that the country has a long-term, sustained commitment to climate change. Does that go as far as I would like? It absolutely does not, and I fought very hard to try and, make it stronger. But ultimately, the fact that we have an enduring political settlement that will survive a change from a Labour-led government to a National-led government does more good than a flash-in-the-pan approach in which you get some big wins now, but which are then reversed out at the next change of government. That's what we've seen in other jurisdictions around the world, including our nearest neighbours, what you've seen in the United States. It does not work. It does not lead to more action. What we need is sustained effort over the next 3 decades across every sector of the economy, across the entirety of our society, across multiple changes of government. And I have done that, right? And I'm absolutely proud of that, and I stand by that. It does come at some cost and at some frustration. And I get that, because I find that as frustrating as anybody.
Yeah, Chloe Swarbrick has a bit of a following. She regularly sort of pops up in the confirmed Prime Minister things. Do you think that popularity could translate into a boost for the Greens if she would become Premier?
Look, Chloe is an extraordinary political talent, right? That is immediately obvious to absolutely anybody. I am not going to speculate on what some hypothetical scenario is, but it is clear that she does bring a constituency to the Green Party. It's obvious, in her win in Auckland Central, which was historic, that she has something that the vast majority of other members of Parliament don't have.
Does that make her a viable threat to you?
Do you believe the past few days have been damaging for the Green Party?
I guess our polling and history will tell, but ultimately, I think no. Because if you look at, the various trials and tribulations that we've had in our history, we've had many much worse scenarios than this, and we have always come back stronger.
This agitation.
Would you want to keep the climate portfolio if you lost the leadership?
Sorry, say that again?
Would you want to keep the climate change ministerial portfolio if you lost the leadership?
Yes, and the Prime Minister's confirmed that she wants me in that role, and as long as I'm able to, I will continue. My work in climate change is frankly only just starting to bear fruit, right? We've spent the first term of government laying down the foundations. This term, we're sort of executing on what we did in the first term. If you look, for example, the clean car discount, which is something that we put together in the first term and got it through this term. In the last couple of months for which we have data, 1 in 5 new cars sold, 21% of all new cars sold in this country are battery electric vehicle. You compare that to where it was a few years ago, it's completely exponential what's going on there. And that is as a result of that policy work that we were able to introduce. So those kinds of things are just starting to get traction. I'm not about to walk away from a job that I consider barely half done, right when we're about to get some traction.
Have you given any advice to Marama as to how to lead alone?
Sorry, Joe.
Have you given any advice to Marama as to how to lead alone? How to be a leader on your own? Have you given any advice to Marama?
We've had some conversations, but no, I wouldn't say that I've strayed into the domain of advice. Marama is an extremely capable person and has her own leadership style, and I think that she's entirely capable of being able to lead the party through the next few weeks.
The agitation for your leadership is not going. You're going somewhere though.
Good save.